Have you ever stood on a pavement in a prospective new neighborhood and just tried to rely entirely on your gut feeling to decide if you should spend hundreds of thousands of pounds to live there?
Oh, all the time. It's a terrifyingly common scenario, actually.
Right. I mean, you look at a charming local pub, or maybe you see a couple of mature trees shading the high street, and your brain just whispers, yes, this is the one. I can completely see myself drinking a flat white right there.
Yeah, and we routinely make the single largest financial decision of our entire lives based on that. Just an emotional split-second snapshot.
It's wild when you say it out loud.
It is. We completely ignore the massive iceberg of actual data hiding just beneath the surface of that, picturesque high street.
And honestly, it usually feels like we don't have a choice because parsing property data is just, well, it's so overwhelming.
Absolutely.
But that is the mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at the official Before You Move guide. It's titled, How to Compare Two Areas Before Deciding Where to Buy.
Brilliant guide.
Yeah, and we are going to ditch the guesswork entirely. By the end of this, you will be armed with a practical, repeatable, and entirely data-driven method to compare two UK areas side by side.
It is really about moving from hoping an area works for you to actually proving it works for you on paper long before you ever instruct a solicitor or make an offer.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can start scoring a neighborhood, we have to actually define what a neighborhood is, right?
Yeah.
If we are going to be scientific about this, we need a baseline.
Precisely. The golden rule of any comparison is that you must compare like with like.
Makes sense.
If you want the data to be meaningful, you have to freeze your variables. That means using the exact same property type, say 3-bedroom semi-detached houses,
Right.
the exact same budget ceiling,
Right.
and the same time frame for your data. But most importantly, it means using identical geographical boundaries.
Oh, I see where this is going. It's like if I'm testing two chemicals in a lab, I can't test which one reacts faster if I'm heating one in a tiny beaker and freezing the other in a massive bucket.
Spot.
It's just basic science. I need a control variable.
Yeah.
And in property hunting, my control is the boundary.
Yes, exactly. And this raises a really important question. What boundary do you actually use? Because the vast majority of buyers rely on vague terms like suburb or postcode.
Wait, hang on. Why not postcodes? Everyone uses postcodes. It's literally how we search on every property portal in the country.
I know, but you cannot do that. Because a postcode was designed by Royal Mail to deliver the post efficiently.
Oh, right. Not for data.
Exactly, not to perform statistical analysis. Boundaries vary wildly in size and population. If you pull crime stats for a named suburb and then housing prices for a postcode, you are looking at two completely different physical footprints.
So the data becomes instantly skewed.
Completely skewed. Which is why the guide heavily recommends using official ONS, the Office for National Statistics geographies, specifically the MSOA.
The MSOA. Okay, let's translate that for someone who doesn't work in a government statistics office.
Fair enough. It stands for Middle Layer Super Output Area. Very catchy. It's a very specific, standardized chunk of geography designed purely for census and statistical data. They usually contain around 7,000 to 8,000 people.
So it's a fixed size.
Yes. Standardizing your geography to an MSOA keeps the data absolutely honest. It gives you a consistent, fixed bucket to pour your data into.
Right.
If Area A and Area B are both MSOAs, you are comparing equal populations, not a tiny hamlet, against a sprawling urban postcode.
Okay, so we've got our controlled test environments for identical MSOA buckets. Now, what exactly are we pouring into them? We need specific, measurable inputs to fill out our comparison matrix.
The guide breaks this down into 7 core signals. These are the 7 pillars every buyer must score to get a true picture of an area, and the first is affordability.
I assume we aren't just looking at the headline house price here, because a £500,000 house in Yorkshire means something very different than one in Zone 2 London.
Exactly. You must look at the price-to-income ratio. You divide the median house price by the median local earnings. What we're really measuring here is local economic strain.
But why does that matter to me if I already know I can afford the mortgage? If I have the budget, why do I care what the median earner makes?
Because it tells you how stretched the local economy is, which impacts absolutely everything around you.
How so?
Well, if local residents are spending 60 to 70% of their take-home pay just servicing their mortgages or rent, they have virtually zero disposable income. And what happens when a community has no disposable income?
The high street dies, the cafes close, the independent shops board up, and you're left with empty storefronts.
Precisely. The wealth is tied up in bricks. It's not flowing through the local economy. So affordability isn't just about your wallet. It dictates the vibrancy of the neighborhood you are buying into.
Oh, wow. That makes a lot of sense, actually. So we've covered the financial strain of an area, but what about actually getting around, getting to work, getting to a doctor?
That leads to the second signal, which is access. And here, we must move beyond typing a destination into a mapping app on your phone at 10 p.m. and just assuming that's the real commute.
Guilty. I do that all the time. I'll look and say, oh, it says it's only 25 minutes?
Yes, but it's midnight on a Tuesday and the roads are completely empty.
Right, yeah.
Which is why the guide points to the Department for Transport's Journey Time Statistics, or JTS.
ATS.
Yeah. This is a massive official data set. It gives you the aggregate modeled travel times to key employment centers or hospitals using public transport, walking, or cycling, but during actual peak hours.
That's brilliant.
It factors in real timetables and historical delays. It is far more robust than a single best-case scenario search on your phone.
So it's the difference between optimism and reality. Good to know. What is next on the list?
Third on the list is safety.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here, because looking at raw crime data usually just terrifies people.
It really does.
You zoom in on a street map on police.uk. You see 3 little colored pins for antisocial behavior right outside a lovely Victorian terrace, and suddenly you think you're moving into a war zone. Isn't that data notoriously misleading if you just look at a few streets?
What's fascinating here is that the Home Office actually agrees with you.
Really?
Yeah. Those street-level pins are highly problematic for buyers. They are anonymized and deliberately snapped to approximate locations to protect victim privacy.
Wait, snapped? What does that mean?
It means a pin floating over a specific house might actually represent an incident that happened 3 streets away or at a nearby busy junction.
Oh, wow. So relying on those pins could make you write off a perfectly safe street just because of a mapping technicality.
Yes, and that is exactly why the guide insists you do not count individual pins. Instead, you zoom out to our control variable, the MSOA.
Back to the buckets.
Exactly. You aggregate the safety data to calculate crimes per 1,000 residents within that entire boundary. It gives you the true, smoothed-out local rate, removing those terrifying but often entirely misleading street-level spikes.
That brings the heart rate down significantly. So if you're listening to this and you're house hunting, stop torturing yourself with the street-level crime maps. Just pull the MSOA rate. Okay, that's affordability, access, and safety. What are we looking at for the fourth signal?
Education. And this is particularly relevant if you have children or, plan to. But again, the trap is looking at a single headline figure.
Right.
In England, for instance, you cannot just look at an overarching Ofsted grade, especially with the recent government moves toward report cards rather than single-word judgments.
Yeah, because the school might be branded outstanding based on an inspection that happened, 7 years ago, while the current reality is very different.
Exactly. You must look at the component judgments, specific grades for curriculum quality, behavior, and safeguarding. And then, crucially, you pair that qualitative inspection data with hard, quantitative Department for Education data.
Which data specifically?
The guide recommends using the Key Stage 4 Attainment 8 scores.
Okay, let's break down Attainment 8 for a second. What does that actually measure?
It measures the academic progress a pupil makes across 8 core subjects, including maths and English, up to their GCSEs.
Okay.
It tells you the actual academic throughput of the school. By pairing the inspector's qualitative view with the kid's actual exam progress, you get a 3-dimensional picture of the education quality.
It's the difference between someone saying a restaurant looks nice and actually reading the hygiene rating and tasting the food.
Got it.
Moving on. What is the 5th signal?
Environment and risk. This is where we look at the physical reality of the geography. You must check the long-term flood risk using the Environment Agency's NAFRA 2 data.
NAFRA 2 being...
The National Flood Risk Assessment. It is a highly sophisticated model that will tell you the exact percentage of dwellings in an area at risk of flooding from rivers, the sea, or surface water.
Important stuff.
Very. And you must pair that with DEFRA's PM 2.5 background maps to check air quality.
DEFRA being the Department for Environment, Food, and Rural Affairs. Now, PM 2.5, I know this is about pollution, but why is this specific metric so heavily weighted in the guide? You can't even see it with the naked eye.
You can't see it, but that is exactly why it is lethal. PM 2.5 refers to microscopic particulate matter. That's pollution from vehicle exhausts, tire wear, and industry.
Right.
These particles are so small, they bypass your body's natural defenses, penetrating deep into your lungs and even your bloodstream.
Oh, that's grim.
It is. Buying a house means committing to breathing the local air for maybe 10, 20 years. Living in high PM 2.5 areas long term is a massive documented health risk. You have to check the data because your eyes simply won't warn you.
That is sobering, but completely essential. Which brings us to the more immediate day-to-day livability. Signal number 6.
Amenities. How easy is it to actually live your life there? We return to the JTS, the journey time statistics, to find the travel time to a designated food store.
So just getting a pint of milk or a loaf of bread.
Exactly. If running out of milk requires a 20-minute round trip in the car because there are no local amenities, that heavily impacts your quality of life. It hits your transport budget and your carbon footprint over the years.
It really does. And the final signal.
Digital connectivity. You check Ofcom's Connected Nations data for gigabit broadband availability, and crucially, you check for indoor 4G or 5G reliability on at least 2 major networks.
Oh, the indoor aspect is so important. I almost rented a place once where the garden had full bars, but the moment I stepped into the kitchen to try and take a work call, it was an absolute dead zone.
It happens all the time.
And with hybrid working, a bad connection isn't just an annoyance anymore. It actively prevents you from doing your job.
Precisely. So those are your 7 signals?
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. We have gathered all this data, but honestly, it sounds like an absolute nightmare to look at on a spreadsheet.
It can be, yes.
Because one metric is in minutes for a commute, another is a percentage of flood risk, one is a financial ratio, and another is in micrograms of microscopic pollution. How on earth do you translate this chaos into a single score you can actually use to compare 2 towns?
You have to normalize the data.
Yeah.
You build a 0 to 100 scale where 100 is always the best possible outcome for you, the buyer.
It sounds a bit like converting foreign currencies.
Yeah.
You know, you can't easily compare the price of a coffee in dollars, yen, and euros until you apply an exchange rate and convert them all into British pounds.
Yeah.
Then you instantly know which one is cheapest. We are doing that, but with beta.
That is a perfect analogy. Let's look at access times. Say Area A has a commute of 38 minutes. Area B has a commute of 55 minutes. You map those onto your scale. The shortest time, 38 minutes, becomes your benchmark 100 score. The longest time, 55 minutes, becomes your 0 score. You do this for every single category. Suddenly, percentages, minutes, and crime rates are all speaking the exact same mathematical language.
Okay, I love that. It gamifies it a bit. But wait, surely not all 7 categories are equally important to everyone. If I work from home 5 days a week, I care way more about that indoor 4G digital connectivity than I do about the morning commute time.
Which brings us to weighting. You start with equal weights for all 7 signals, but then you deliberately adjust them to match your personal life priorities.
Right.
However, the guide strictly notes a rule you must follow. You must cap any single category at a maximum of 30% of the total score.
I have to push back on this. If
Yeah.
it's my matrix and my house, and I absolutely despise commuting, why can't I weight the commute at 60%? Why the rigid 30% cap?
This raises an important question about human psychology. The cap exists to prevent you from blinding yourself to a fundamentally terrible area just because it has one amazing feature.
Oh,
If you weight the commute at 60 or 80%, the maths will force you to buy a house next to a toxic waste dump with a failing school and high crime simply because the train station is across the road.
wow.
The 30% cap mathematically forces you to maintain a holistic view of the neighborhood.
Okay. It forces you to look at the whole picture. You are literally saving yourself from your own biases.
Exactly. And this leads to a crucial piece of advice. You must document your weights before you look at the final data for the specific houses you like. If you don't, human nature takes over.
Yeah, I would absolutely rig the numbers. I'd look at a house with a beautiful granite kitchen island and suddenly find myself saying, you know what, air quality isn't that important. Let's drop that to 5% so this house wins.
We all would. It defeats the entire purpose of the data. So you lock in the weights first. Now, the guide also introduces the concept of red lines and tiebreakers. Let's walk through the example they provide in the text, comparing a city fringe area to a coastal town.
Let's do it.
So you crunch all your normalized weighted numbers. The city fringe area scores a solid 58 out of 100. The coastal town score is slightly higher, a 62.
Okay.
It wins on affordability, and it wins massively on clean air. Based purely on the final score, you should be packing your bags for the seaside.
I feel a butt coming.
But when you look closely at the environment and risk data, the coastal town has 6% of its dwellings in a medium to high flood risk zone.
Oh,
If, before you started, you defined any unacceptable flood risk as a red line, it simply does not matter that it's scored a 62. A red line breach is an automatic exclusion. The city fringe area wins by default.
it's exactly like dating deal breakers. You meet someone, they score a perfect 100 on charm, they're hilarious, they have a great job. But if your absolute red line is must love dogs, and they happen to be severely allergic, well, the overall score just doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You can't negotiate with an allergy, just like you can't negotiate with river water in your living room. They are automatically disqualified.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. You apply your red lines first. If neither area breaches a red line, and they happen to be tied on the total score, the rules are first, the area that scores highest in your personal highest priority category wins.
Makes sense.
And second, if it is still a dead heat, you prefer the area with lower statistical volatility.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning the area where the data is based on larger, more reliable population samples, you basically trust the more robust data.
Okay, so we've got our spreadsheets, we've set our weights blindly, we've avoided the dating deal breakers and flood zones.
Yeah.
We've got a clear winner on paper. Are we finally ready to call the estate agent and make an offer?
Absolutely not.
I knew it. There's always a catch.
Well, a spreadsheet can tell you that a commute takes exactly 38 minutes and the area scores a 92 on your index. But what happens when that 38-minute commute involves standing shoulder to shoulder on a freezing, exposed train platform, utterly miserable in the pouring rain?
Not great.
The map is not the territory. You have to move to the final step of the methodology, which is ground truthing.
I think we've all experienced this. Think about it. Have you ever visited a town at 2 p.m. on a sunny Sunday, sat in a pub garden, and fallen in love with the place?
Oh, definitely.
Only to visit again at 6 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday in November and realize the vibe is completely bleak and the traffic is an absolute nightmare.
Which is why physical verification is non-negotiable. You must visit both areas, and you must do it strategically.
Right.
You need to be there at weekday peak times to witness the reality of the rush hour traffic and the chaos of the local school run. You need to visit on the weekend to see if those amenities in your matrix are actually open and accessible. And crucially, you must visit after dark.
The after dark check is something people always skip. Does that quick 5-minute walk from the station suddenly feel incredibly isolated and intimidating when the streetlights are dim, the shops are shuttered, and there's no foot traffic?
Exactly. You must physically replicate key journeys. Do not just drive the route you plan to walk. Actually walk it. Test the terrain, check the lighting, see if there are safe pedestrian crossings.
But the data doesn't tell you that.
No, it doesn't. The data might say a food store is a 10-minute walk, but if that walk is along a dual carriageway with no pavement, the data is useless.
But wait, my ground truthing today only tells me about today. My gut feeling can't see into next year. How do we account for things changing?
That is the final piece of the puzzle. You must cross-reference the present physical reality with the future. You do this by looking at local authority plans and the planning register.
Okay.
The guide advises looking at all planning decisions within a 500-meter radius of your target streets.
What exactly are we looking for in those council planning registers?
You are looking to see what is coming in the next 2 to 3 years. Is that quiet, disused industrial estate at the end of the road, slated to be demolished and turned into a massive 24-hour logistics distribution center?
Oh, that would be a disaster.
Or is a new block of flats going to block your line of sight or put immense strain on local parking? If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to remember a fundamental flaw of statistics. All the data you gathered in your matrix represents the past and the average.
Right, because data takes time to collect, verify, and publish by the ONS or DEFRA. It's always looking backward.
Exactly. Ground truthing your physical environment, combined with checking local planning registers, is how you protect yourself against the future. You are ensuring that the perfect 100-score neighborhood you are buying into today doesn't legally turn into a 40-score neighborhood the day after you exchange contracts.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, right now? It means that house hunting absolutely does not have to be this anxiety-inducing, high-stakes gamble based on how nicely the local estate agent smiled at you.
No, it doesn't.
By freezing your variables, using rigid MSOA boundaries and identical budgets, you create a scientific level playing field.
Yes.
By pulling official, unsensationalized data across the 7 core signals: affordability, access, safety, education, environment, amenities, and digital connectivity, you build a true, unvarnished profile of the area.
And by normalizing those wildly disparate numbers onto a simple 0 to 100 scale and weighting them to your specific life needs with that strict 30% cap, you remove your own subconscious biases.
You set your red lines,
Mm,
you stick to them, and you let the maths guide you to the logical conclusion.
exactly. But you never let the maths completely blind you to reality. You get your boots on the ground.
You walk the streets in the rain, you walk them at night, and you check the council planning registers to ensure the future of the area aligns with the data of the past.
It is a rigorous process, undoubtedly, but it is entirely repeatable. It turns a massive emotional leap in the dark into a structured, highly confident financial decision.
It is incredibly empowering to know you can take control of the process like this. But it also leaves me with a final, slightly provocative thought to chew on before we go.
Oh.
We've talked so much today about securing this highly scientific, data-backed 0-100 score, but that score is based on a snapshot of today, right? With accelerating climate change, radically redrawing our national flood maps, and post-pandemic shifts constantly altering local transport timetables and high-street survival rates, how quickly does a perfect 100 neighborhood degrade to a 60?
That's a great point.
When you buy a house, are you just buying the area as it is today, or are you actually placing a massive financial bet on what the data will look like 10 years from now?
That is the multi-100,000-pound question. A home isn't just a static asset. It's a living stake in a constantly changing geography. The matrix gives you the best possible odds based on evidence, but the map will always keep shifting beneath your feet.
Before you commit to a property, visit beforeyoumove.co.uk to research the area or postcode. If this helped, please comment, like, follow, or subscribe for more practical UK property guidance.